And we are back.
Welcome back, everybody, to the only podcast that knows that sometimes Chekhov's gun is a fully loaded automatic.
Whee!
I'm Dr. Patrick Armstrong.
And I'm Dr. Christopher Silverstein, and we are doctors.
But not doctors.
Yeah, here we are again. And for the first time, we're able to do this consecutively. This is another episode, the 21st episode, but, you know, it's been about a week since we had our last conversation.
Well, you know what they say, Chris. You know, if at first you don't succeed, try 20 more times and then get it right in the 21st. So I think we're right on target.
I think we are right on target. I think that, we're doing pretty good here. It's been, you know, it's an interesting time because in the UK, politics is kind of on vacation, and everybody's taking all of their breaks now because in September Parliament will come back for 2 weeks, and then Parliament will then go away for another 3.5 weeks while the different political parties have their party conferences where they discuss and set their political agendas for the coming year.
Very exciting.
It's an exciting time. Yeah, so right now, most of these guys are off in the south of France or in their constituencies or, you know, taking some time away. And because I work in Parliament, I'm going to say it like this. Even though they're on holiday, a lot of them will still have their phones on and still like working heavily.
I don't really know how I honestly don't know how you take a vacation from politics when you're a politician, basically.
You don't.
Yeah, it's just sort of like, okay, you're going to call me at 4 a.m. while I'm in the south of France instead of calling me at 4 a.m. while I'm in London. And or
wherever your constituency may be. So I think, some people might call me a shill for this, but, you know, these guys actually do work really hard. Most of them work exceptionally hard. And because we had a lot of MPs in the last Parliament, you don't stop. Like, you know, some of these people literally didn't have a break for 9.5 years, nearly 10 years, because, you know, like you said, you know, if somebody's house catches fire in your constituency or somebody decides to announce job closures in the middle of August, you can't say, sorry, buddy, but I'm off on holiday. So you got to go to somebody else for the quote. You know, I'm going to don't call me. Don't send me any messages. Yeah, that's not how it works. Not everyone's like that, but a lot of mine were, you know, they often said that, you know, they got a little bit of time off, but they never get as much as they really need.
I mean, I feel like it's a guarantee that if you actually take time off as a politician, that's when, for example, Texas has a snowstorm. You know, Ted Cruz is proof positive of, like, you know, never take vacations if you're a politician.
To be clear, he hadn't taken the vacation yet. he had to go on vacation, and he could have not gone or gone on vacation a lot later.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
So
maybe he's the reverse of it then. And so normally politician goes on vacation, you know, and then disaster happens. Whereas Ted Cruz, maybe it's disaster happens and he's like, you know, it's a good time for a vacay.
Maybe it's a good time for a vacay. Yes. So, a lot of things are happening around the world this week. And I mean, I believe a minister for homelessness resigned as well in the UK.
Yeah. Okay, I saw the headline on this. I didn't get a chance to read the story. Is there anything interesting there?
I mean, I only saw the headline. The headline is effectively that she has a flat or some kind of rental property, and she raised her rent by £700 in a single year.
What?
Yeah, and I don't know exactly what kind of property she had.
Good Lord.
But £700 in a year is
that £700 per month?
Let me just check. Hang on. There we go. She, quote, according to, let's go with HuffPost here.
Yeah.
We pulled this one out of the hat, folks. We were not planning on talking about this. I just popped in my head.
This is the equivalent of live television. We're working without a neck here, people. Ned, because we are way too lazy to have a second take.
Oh, we're not going to do a second take. No, I mean, hell, what's the point? I got stuff to do today. All right. So they're telling us who she is. Oh, I don't care about that. I know who she is. They reported that she had evicted tenants from her property. Oh, I see. Here's the problem. Ooh. She was the homelessness minister.
Yeah.
And the newspaper reported that she evicted tenants from her own property and then relisted the house for a higher rental price, which would be £700 more. So and then she leases. She has she's renting out a 4-bedroom townhouse in East London for £4,000 a month.
Wow. I mean,
and she was the homelessness.
I feel like that's probably going to pay the mortgage. She's probably going to cover the mortgage with that kind of rental price.
Well, it depends on when she bought.
I think that's a good point, actually.
We could get into all sorts of stuff. I mean, if she bought, in the past 5 or 6 years, then maybe not. But I mean, if she bought, 15, 20 years ago, then it's absolutely,
that she's quids in basically at that point. Yeah. I have to wonder about this. How can you be a politician? How can you accept the post of homelessness minister and then do something that is clearly going to cause a massive scandal and force you to have to resign? Like that extra $700 a month, I'm sure is okay. I would probably sell my soul for an extra $700 a month. I'm not going to lie to you, Chris. But yeah, I am not homelessness minister, so I got my own cross to bear.
Yeah, no, I don't know how you do it. Like then I make sure it happened. They have you more information. Excuse me. That the property is currently listed for $894,995. Let's just call it $895
Let's call it $895
for ease. Yeah. So more over $300,000 more than what she paid. So so they did a deep dive into this and some other stuff. But I mean, this is just a little taste. I mean, this is insane. Now, I mean, there are lots of reasons why you could raise the rent, but raising it by that much and kicking out your tenants. So first off, there's a thing here in the UK where you can't really do that. You have to use a special portion of the rental, the rental act. I forget the specific name of the rental act, but you can kick people out for emergency reasons in order to do emergency repairs on the house or emergency repairs on basically on the property. And that's the only real reason you can basically send somebody a message saying, hey, we're shutting down this house. You got to move out, and you have to move out within the next 14, 30 days or whatever. Right. And it's really controversial because you have all these landlords who bought all these places maybe in 2000, 2010 or whatever. And now they may have people who have been in there for a very long time, and they realize that they can raise the rent if they make some minor changes to the flat, even because the new people won't even know. So you're going to make some minor changes to the flat, and then new people can come in and you can charge them £700 more a month than you were charging the last people. I mean, it's a really deceptive plan, and even worse, I think Labor is trying to come out with a new rental rights.
Well, they are. They're planning. They've got the rental rights bill, right, which is expected to become law this year. And one of the big things that it's going to be doing is the abolition of what's called Section 21.
That's it.
Evictions, which are the no fault eviction, basically, right? Because if you're going to be going through all the trouble of renting a place and moving into it and living in it, basically, it doesn't seem right that you can just sort of be turfed out without having, broken the lease, without having, caused some kind of issue. I mean, I think most people would agree that if you're going to be able to raise a family, you need to have some kind of stability. And if you're going to have some kind of stability, you can't just be turfed out because all of a sudden the, landlord decides, you know what, I could probably get an extra $700 a month if I feel like it. So unless this housing minister has one hell of a good story about how her tenants, caused some issue or whatever, so that the eviction was not related to her, wanting some more money every month, then she probably wouldn't have resigned. I think there might have been a bit more of a pushback on that if that were the case.
Yeah. So, we'll have to wait. I mean, we'll not wait and see. I mean, that's just something that's happened. Let's talk about the stuff we actually meant to talk about today.
Yeah.
So obviously we have to start with a little update on the scandal that just isn't disapparating from Trump's life.
Yeah. The black hole around which everything in Washington revolves. It's interesting because you can't see exactly what it is that's causing everyone to act so crazy, but something is there that's making them act crazy. And of course, we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein and his friends, who include the President of the United States.
Yeah.
So What kind of things have you noticed going on recently in the last week, Chris?
Oh, geez. To be honest, I'm moving house. So what I'm realizing is what's seeping through the boxes and all that stuff. So why don't you tell me what you've noticed, and I will figure, and I will jog my memory for the nonsense, because I remember from last week, Ghislaine Maxwell had moved on to Club Fed.
Yes,
she had this is a backtrack from last week, but she had a private meeting with the assistant attorney general, where nobody knows what was said, but everybody knows that she's gotten better accommodation for being a convicted sex trafficker of underage minors.
Well, not just a sex trafficker, Chris. Don't forget that part of what she did was also to rape children. So she engaged in the rape of children.
And a sex criminal. She's a sex criminal as well.
She is a sex criminal. And that's interesting. That's actually a germane point to this, because the thing is about minimum security prisons, Chris, is that you don't get to go to them if you've been convicted of sex crimes.
That's right.
Like you are not allowed to go to a minimum security prison, because that's not what minimum security prisons are for. They are for people who are, not threats to others and haven't engaged in, violence and, sexual crimes. So in order to move her there, the Justice Department basically, or possibly the Bureau of Prisons, had to basically give her a waiver. They had to bend the rules specifically for her in order to move her to to Club Fed, which is, I'm gonna use the phrase that is used by lawyers to describe things that are 100% fucked up, and that phrase is exceptional.
Oh,
it is an exceptional move.
That's exceptional. Ooh.
Yeah, because it's an exception to the goddamn rules. So it's one of those things that it raises the hackles. It makes you wonder, why is she getting this incredibly preferential treatment? What could she possibly have done to merit this when she is, again, a convicted sex trafficker and raper of children?
And I am starting to remember some things that had come through, but why don't you start and let's see if we land in the same place.
Yeah. So basically, apparently, and I'm going to have to say apparently a lot here, because we don't have a lot of very good, solid information on what it is that Ghislaine talked about with the Assistant Attorney General, because, of course, the Assistant Attorney General didn't bring a third party in and didn't take notes.
No notes, so, no notes, no witnesses.
Yeah, exactly. So, the kind of thing that you'd want to do if you were engaged in a criminal conspiracy. I'm just saying, if you're a fan of The Wire, you remember that scene? Everyone loved that scene where you're taking notes on a criminal conspiracy. Yeah.
I've seen the clip.
I'm not accusing Assistant Attorney General Blanche of engaging in a criminal conspiracy. I'm just saying, if you were, you'd want to do what he's doing there.
Yeah.
So that's fun. So, but apparently, Ghislaine Maxwell gave information on 100 people. 100 people. And apparently, she also said that Donald Trump is as pure as the driven snow.
That's right.
He never did anything concerning, as far as she was aware, that he, specifically him, completely exonerated, no question whatsoever. And that's why she's been moved to Club Fed. No, I'm sorry. If I say that that's why she's moved to Club Fed, that might imply, again, something akin to a criminal conspiracy, which I would never want to do.
Of course not. Then we are in the same place. Yes, it came out earlier this week that the rumor is that in the meeting where there was no one present but Ghislaine Maxwell and the Assistant Attorney General, Trump's former personal attorney, by the way. Those two people, there's rumor that she has basically said, here are the names of all the awful people in the world, but guess what? I just never saw Donald John Trump, the most pure and holy person that I've ever seen walk the earth, ever do anything wrong. I have never lied, and I've never been done for perjury. I am a trustworthy witness. What I find very interesting is that this news hasn't filtered into like the mainstream news. It hasn't. I've seen it on people who exclusively cover the Mac, so like Voidzilla was talking about it, and I think it was either Newsweek or something that has been talking about it. Like they've gotten like some rumor, because no one's officially said this yet, right?
Yeah.
And this is what I've always find interesting is like Trump has always said he's never been to the island, or he said he said various things, but he never said that his name's not on the list.
Well, and I
like
think
he's never just said I am not on the list, and obviously he's never released he's not released the files to prove that he's not in there. And of course there was the other news from a few weeks ago that apparently the FBI has drafted, or the DOJ or the FBI, because the FBI is part of the DOJ, just scrubbing his name out of the files wherever they have
been redacting any mention of the president from the Epstein files. And that, the thing is, that actually raises some interesting questions, right? Because if you're Donald Trump, and also if we make the heroic assumption that you're not super into the whole ethics thing, then you might look at releasing, some Epstein information basically as an opportunity to hide your own misdoings, if there are any, and to showcase the misdoings of others, right? So let's say that they do release those files after having, redacted any mention of President Trump. If they don't redact the name of, say, Bill Clinton, then his name would appear. And anytime you see a redaction, well, that's not Bill Clinton.
That's right.
And if they don't redact the name of Alan Dershowitz, anytime you see Alan Dershowitz appear, that's him. And if you see a redaction, that's not Alan Dershowitz.
That's right.
And so every time you do see a redaction, well, kind of narrows the field, doesn't it, of who that could be referring to?
Yeah.
So, I think even redacting the name is going to be problematic, because unless there's a really strong reason to think that lots of people have been redacted from it, it's going to open up speculation for everyone to say, well, we know Trump is in there somewhere. We know he's been redacted. Let's see what the redacted people have done. And then if the redacted people involve, accusations of engaging in sexual misconduct, crimes against children or what have you, that could be that's the kind of thing that's not going to end this controversy. It's not going to end the crisis for the presidency. So I really don't think he's got a lot of good options here.
No, I don't think he has a lot of good options at all. And I mean, the issue with the redactions is that it's got a lot of that unindicted co-conspirator number one vibe to it.
Yeah.
Which you remember from the Russia report.
Yeah. And in fact, from the successful prosecution of, what was his lawyer? The other lawyer of his who went right to jail, Michael.
The guy who's
can't remember. But he this is breaking my heart.
Michael Cohen.
Michael Cohen. Thank you very much. Yeah. So president's personal lawyer / fixer ended up going to jail precisely because of, being the guy who makes the payoff to Stormy Daniels, engages in crime, suffers for it. Donald Trump is mentioned as an unindicted co-conspirator because he is president. And according to the rules that we, for some reason, have decided to run with in the United States, presidents cannot be criminally indicted while they are president. I don't know why they've done that.
That is a weird one, because I think there's a lot of trust put into Congress because of the way Congress works, right? In theory, Congress is independent from the presidency, and therefore they're supposed to be a group of 535 individuals. But we know they break into parties, but they're supposed to rise above politics. The original idea was that they'd rise above politics because, of course, originally there weren't really political parties, were there? They were just rich men.
In fact, the entire system was predicated on the idea that there wouldn't be political parties.
Yeah.
That it would be that presidents will be selected by the wise men of the country who will come together to pick someone of outstanding virtue. And that's why we have an electoral college instead of directly electing presidents.
That's right.
And of course, originally senators weren't directly elected either. They were going to be picked by state governments to represent states, and then the people would elect the House of Representatives, like the House of Commons. But somehow there wouldn't be any political parties happening.
But you would have had, effectively hand selected individuals at the the senatorial level, and then of course as the president, who you could have the House of Representatives who have to be shifted out every 2 years. Then you'd have the Senate, which is 6 years, and the president, which is 4 years. So you'd and those people then, who would they owe their political fortunes to? Their states, maybe the governor, and obviously the rich people who were the only ones who were allowed to vote back then, the rich white men who were only allowed to vote back then. But we digress. So the president isn't allowed to be indicted.
Yeah. Great. What a great idea.
Which means that during the presidency, there's not much you can do outside of impeachment when a president commits or is accused of committing a crime.
Well, according to the Supreme Court, Chris, only impeachment. That's it. Like according to the law as it currently stands, according to the Supreme Court, the president cannot be, he is immune to the criminal law for any actions he takes while in office that can be categorized as official acts or even within the general penumbra of his powers. Presumably, that doesn't involve if a president, I don't know, theoretically shoots someone in his personal capacity, or, engages in sexual violence in their personal capacity. Maybe they could be theoretically indicted for that, but only after they've left office.
That's right.
And it seems that the way the Supreme Court has sort of set it up, you can't even indict presidents for those things unless they've been impeached. It's not a great the Supreme Court ruling that sort of reset the law and made the president God King. It was not well reasoned. It's not very clear exactly what it means. It just appears to be something that was designed to benefit Donald Trump and only Donald.
Yeah, and that's what we said at the time when it happened. But we are veering very far off the course here of...
That's true. We've gotten a little bit... You start talking about Epstein and you end up talking about impeachment. I don't know why that happened. Why does that happen, Chris?
That's wild. That's wild. It's sad because,
so strange. It's
so strange. And we'll talk about the midterms later, which, has nothing to do with that. But yeah, so basically, the rumor has it that Ghislaine Maxwell has... been very cooperative in ensuring that Trump's name is now, cleaner than clean, because Ghislaine Maxwell is cleaner than clean in her brand new cell. And of course he has the power to pardon her as well. So that's the ultimate get out clause, right? So who knows what she could say. Now imagine no one, I don't believe, is naive enough to believe that Trump wouldn't pardon her for basically falsely implicating anyone that she could think of: Hunter Biden, the Pope, Queen Elizabeth II, whoever she can think of, but she this is like getting information from the devil.
Yeah.
The devil has
course.
The
point of such corruption.
Exactly. And there's people who want to believe it, or just basically want to say that this is it, but I don't think this is going to fly with the MAGAs, This isn't clean. It doesn't pass the sniff test. I mean, you would need somebody completely who we've never heard of before, who's got the pedigree, who's got the provenance of saying, this is how I'm affiliated with everything that's happened, and I was in the room and I saw all the bad stuff, and I'm an accessory, and I'm going to turn myself in, and I'm, this paladin who happened to be in this criminality, and I am absolving Donald Trump. I think that might work for the conspiracy theorists out there, but that person doesn't exist, or else they would have come forward. And right now, the entirety of this scandal at this moment is hanging on the word of a convicted perjuring rapist, sex trafficker.
I will take slight issue with what you just said, because we're all about facts here on this show. We are nothing if not both fair and balanced. And Ghislaine Maxwell was not convicted of perjury.
Oh, she was not convicted of perjury.
They did not bring forward the perjury charges. It was extremely clear that they could. This would be one of the biggest, easiest goals to make. The problem was that during the trial that she faced, the question was whether or not to bring in the perjury charges and try them along with the charges of sex trafficking.
I remember that from last week. Yeah,
exactly. Right. And so they decided not to do that because they were going to leave it for a separate trial. But then she was already convicted. Why bother? Why bother the court system with establishing who's a liar and who's not? unhelpfully, that means that she was never convicted of perjury. But I think any reasonable person who looks at the facts, the judge was very, very clear in her case that, yeah, she has been lying to the court. And yes,
but she's not been convicted, Patrick. So she is a purely honest person who happens to be a rapist and sex offender.
Well, and it's really important to notice that Donald Trump, the president, wishes this rapist well. He really wishes the child sex trafficker. He just wishes her well, Chris.
Listen, he doesn't want to. She deserves a fair shake. So, we've covered this one pretty closely, and we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. If a pardon is on the way or not, and when there is if there is a pardon, we'll be right here with you. So let's move on to the next thing. Just as simple and easy to talk about, the Israeli plan for the occupation of Gaza.
Yeah. So this is going to get a little bit heavy, isn't it?
Well, yeah. I mean, and this has really just come out officially like last night. Yeah, we're recording this on Friday, the 8th of August, and basically yesterday, the Netanyahu government announced that they have a plan to take over the control of Gaza City. And they have these principles to end the war in the Strip. Now, some of these principles are effectively, one of them is that there can be no more Hamas. There can be no more, and it can't be run by the Palestinian Authority. It can't be, it has to be run by a group of people who don't want to destroy the state of Israel, right? Or they believe it's something about the safety of the state of Israel.
Right.
So,
go
ahead.
I have to wonder, like, after everything that has happened in Gaza, after, over 2% of the population has been killed, after, which, by the way, is a much larger percentage of the population than of Americans that were killed during the First World War. Like, this marks a community. Like, for comparison, during World War I, the Austro-Hungarian Empire lost 3.5% of its population.
Yeah.
And that war shattered the empire and basically destroyed it. Like, we're talking World War I levels of casualties here that have happened in the space of much less time than the First World War happened on a proportional basis in Gaza. This kind of thing marks a society. And I don't know how any government or administration that is put in place by the Israeli state in Gaza could ever have the first glimmerings of legitimacy amongst the Gazan population. Like, there's just no possibility of this leading to a situation where a new administration is beneficial for Israel. I just can't see it happening.
Well, isn't that the problem? I mean, like, it's the problem with the entire offensive is that, the offensive is listed to save the hostages. Obviously, that's one of the principles as well.
Right.
Bring the hostages back, secure the hostages. But in doing so, if you're killing off, percentages of population, and I mean, I think we need to clarify, like, there's 2 million people in Gaza. So killing off like 20,000 people.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's
1% of the population.
That's 1% of the population. So kill off 40,000 people. That's 2% of the population. And I believe the count's up to 50, 60,000.
Oh, we're well over 60,000. And that's the
official count.
That's the official count. That is the count that we basically know for a fact. The actual count is almost certainly larger. And that's really not taking into account the deaths from famine and starvation that are accelerating now. And even if they did just let the food in full force, thousands of Palestinians are still going to die from starvation and starvation-related diseases, because that's what happens with famines.
Yeah.
This is why you try not to have them. And I mean, like, consider this, right? Like, I don't know if you've heard of this little thing called the Irish famine.
Some people have heard of that, yeah.
Right. It's been, you hear it every now and then. It happened over 150 years ago, and there is not a single Irish person that has ever forgotten about it or ever will forget about it. And it's one of those things that has poisoned Irish-Anglo relations ever since, basically. It was such a huge thing. And I want to point out here that the anger that Irish and Irish diaspora people feel about it was because the United Kingdom didn't do enough to stop it. The British didn't cause it. They didn't do it on purpose. Israel is doing this on purpose. So can you imagine the depth of the anger and the length of that anger, and how long it will take for that to sort of work its way through going forward? I just don't know. I don't know. I'm going to go off piece here and just say that I feel like Netanyahu is causing extreme long-term damage to the state of Israel and its ability to be, accepted into the community of nations going forward in a way that I don't think anybody in Israel expected when he got reelected this time. Like, this is, he's causing some damage here.
Yeah, I mean, and let's just to clarify, because we were talking about those 5 principles. I've got them now. The 5 principles for ending the war: the disarmament of Hamas, the return of the hostages, both living and dead, the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, Israeli security control over the Gaza Strip, and the establishment of an alternative civilian administration that is neither Hamas or the Palestinian Authority. So this is what always triggered in my head, right? So it was obviously those are all going to be huge things to try to accomplish. Of course, there are people, they've been interviewing some people in Palestine, and they're asking them, like, okay, so how does this work? And they're just like, well, what is there to occupy? First of all, we're already occupied. Yeah. Second off, what's left? And then this last bit here, the establishment of an alternative civilian administration that is neither Hamas nor the Palestinian Authority. Who is that going to be? And and how do they have any legitimacy? Yeah. Amongst the people that have been bombed and, that's the thing. And killed. And I mean, obviously, there's no issue with returning the hostages because, October 7th was a crime and the hostages should be returned and people shouldn't have been killed. But, we're looking at, like, now they're saying, okay, because of October 7th, we're going to take over all of the Gaza Strip and we're going to effectively implement our own government. But it's not going to be us. It's not going to be us. Right. It's going to be someone else who we're not concerned with. Right. And like some
magical person, some magical group of people who are going to ride in on unicorns, and everything will be absolutely fine. The thing is, it's such a crazy and clearly unworkable thing. It makes me think that this is not really meant to be a plan to end the war. This is meant to be an apparently reasonable thing that Hamas will reject, and therefore that's why they have to keep going with the war. I think it's a reason to keep the war going more than anything else.
Yeah, I mean that does sound like it makes sense. Like, obviously Netanyahu, who is on trial for, I believe, corruption in Israel, like who's already has a list of his own issues domestically, or within his own government. The longer that this thing lasts, the more he can just say, well, you can't get rid of me. We're in the middle of this, great social state emergency. And I am the only one who could walk us into the new land of safety and security. Yep. And
more to the point, while he's in office, they can't continue the prosecution. He cannot go to jail as long as he's prime minister.
Well, there you go. So, I mean, it's a very similar to a U.S. president situation. So, I mean, obviously this thing is fast moving, and it's only really come out in the past, 24 hours that they've officially said this. And in reaction to this, as we were talking about last week, Germany has always been one of the most, for obvious reasons, ardent backers of the state of Israel. And completely eliminates any kind of criticism of the state of Israel.
It is known for being a stalwart ally, I think is a phrase that you'll find.
Stalwart ally is a good way of putting it. And the news this morning is that Germany has pulled, have stopped arms exports to Israel as nations condemn the occupation. And that's the headline in the Times. Countries from around Europe are saying, what are you doing? Because as we said over several episodes now, there's been, like, when Israel could put up that veneer, that false front of, we're doing our best and letting a little bit of food here, letting a little bit of food there. When they're being very obvious now. We're pulling in the bulldozers. We're pushing all of the rubble that we've created into the sea. I don't care if there's people in the way of the bulldozers. We're going to eliminate. We're going to, I don't know, best way to put it, cleanse Gaza. of the people in it. And let's not forget that it's not just Arabs and Muslims in Gaza. There are Christians in Gaza. There are people of all faiths in Gaza.
Yeah, but I think 10% of Palestinian society is Christian.
And the oldest churches in Christendom are in Gaza. So, we're going to push all that into the sea. Yeah. And then, we'll install a government that is favorable to us. And you're all just going to accept it or not be here.
It's going to work perfectly. When has that ever failed, Chris?
When has that ever failed? And everybody who got pushed off their lands or killed for being pushed off their lands, they get over it. They get over 100%.
it. 100%. You definitely don't hear Scots people talking about the Highland clearances.
You don't hear about.
When was the last time you heard that?
Yeah. In my particular job. You don't hear about that. You don't hear about the Irish famine. You don't hear about various attacks around the world. Everybody has the Trail of Tears.
Yeah, definitely not a thing that people have to reckon with if they're Americans of goodwill and rational thinking. But yeah, so this is I don't know. It seems like this is just if it was intended to help Israel's image internationally, it appears to have backfired massively. If it was intended to bring an end to the war, it's definitely not going to work. I think this can only really be seen basically as like, a further step in the horrific logic that means that Netanyahu, to avoid going to prison, must continue being prime minister. In order to continue being prime minister, the war must continue. There has been more than enough stories come out of Israel or the Israeli government, I should say, basically spiking negotiations. Like making sure that negotiations cannot continue. And I think the only way that that's explicable, given the incredible damage that all of this is doing to Israel's standing in the world, the incredible damage this is doing to Israeli society, and of course, the insane amount of death and destruction that is happening to civilians in Gaza. This is only explicable if you see this as Netanyahu desperate to retain power at literally any cost.
Yeah. So we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll do our best to learn more as we move forward. But we're going to take a little break and move on to the next section. So we'll see you in a second. And we're back.
Welcome back, everybody. I hope that was the pause that refreshed.
The pause that refreshed. For us, it was the pause that read. It was. We're going to talk about two or three different things now in the time that remains. But most importantly, it all comes into the concept of competitive authoritarianism. So if you don't know what competitive authoritarianism is, it's kind of like the waypoint for getting to full-blown authoritarianism. So there's living in a democratic society like we live in for now. And then there's authoritarianism where there's a totalitarian state where there is a political party at the very top. And then there's the state apparatus. And
where ultimately the state isn't as concerned with getting people's consent in order to govern, but rather they're, getting them to keep their heads down.
Getting them to keep their heads down. Don't rock the boat. If you raise too far ahead, you better have the right people in your pocket or in the right people's pocket in order to get higher. And whilst there is a state, the party controls the state as opposed to the state, being controlling the aspects of the party. And then there's competitive authoritarianism, which is kind of an in between. It's a way station. It's an unstable way station between the two. And you still have elections in competitive authoritarianism. There are still political parties. There are opposition parties. The difference is in how the incumbent government uses its power to prevent the opposition from coming to power. So usually that's done through manipulating the rules. It's done through manipulating the judicial system. It's done through manipulating the media system. It's done through manipulating people. It's done through beating people up. So there's a couple of tenets, and two professors, Stephen Levitsky and Lucan A. Way, wrote a book called Competitive Authoritarianism, where they create this concept. And there are a few countries in the world that are considered to be under competitive authoritarianism. Turkey is one of them. Egypt is probably one of them. Where obviously Hungary is one of them.
Yeah, they're probably the poster child, I would think, for the concept at this point.
Yeah. And so the reason that we're bringing this up is because two things are happening in the United States right now, which require people's attention. Two very political things. And the first one is control of the media. So as we talked about before, some of you may not know this, but there is a late night show host in America called Stephen Colbert, and he's been a fixture on American television screens for the past 20 years.
He was absolutely.
He was on the Daily Show. Remember him on the Daily Show?
I do. He was great on the Daily Show, and that's where he developed his character, Stephen Colbert. The blowhard right-wing pundits. Basically, it was him doing an imitation of Bill O'Reilly. Now, there's a blast from the past. But and so successfully got his own spin-off show, The Colbert Report, which it just very, very funny that everyone immediately called it The Colbert Report, and no one had any problem with the French pronunciation. I thought that was fun.
Yeah. So, and then after he finished The Colbert Report, I think he was actually coaxed out of The Colbert Report by something called The Late Show. Now, in America, we have, and I'm sure in other countries you have the same thing, you have late night talk shows where you have a host and then people come out, and these are huge fixtures on American television. You may have heard of Johnny Carson. You may have heard of Jay Leno. You may have heard of
David
Letterman and Jimmy Fallon. And I know
Seth Meyers is pretty good. Conan O'Brien, I love that redhead.
Conan O'Brien,
he was good stuff.
Jimmy Kimmel,
Kimmel does good work.
And then of course Stephen Colbert. And Stephen Colbert was given the Late Show on CBS, which was ran by David Letterman. And David Letterman, I think he was the one.
Is that right? I thought he was NBC.
No, David Letterman. No, David Letterman used to be. No, David Letterman is on CBS.
Okay,
and he was effectively created like CBS's late night.
Right. Yes, that's right. Because Because
NBC had Johnny Carson, and that was taken up by Jay Leno, who then gave it to Conan O'Brien, who then took it back to Jay Leno, and then they gave it to Jimmy Fallon. On CBS, David Letterman had set up, again, like 20 years of this persona of creating this awesome image with a few scandals here and there, which we could get into later. And then he passed on the mantle to Stephen Colbert, who completely reorganized the Late Show into this big spectacle, which was and continues to be the most popular late night show on television.
Yeah,
Stephen Colbert did not drop his political opinions, in which he is not. I wouldn't say he's a far left, whatever. He is. I'm pretty sure he's a Christian. Who loves Lord of the Rings. Who's from South Carolina. I mean, this guy is not like, Birkenstock wearing, tree hugging, lefty.
Nah, but he is, I mean, he is a liberal, in the older sense of like sort of center left, generally speaking, not interested in having the government run people's personal lives and being in favor of, softening the edges of capitalism. Yeah. So, if you're a Marxist, maybe you're not that impressed by it and whatnot. But in the American context, woo!
In the American context. So his claim to fame really are that, ever since Trump came into office, he has not pulled his punches, and he's been very successful in criticizing and critiquing Donald Trump and the MAGA people. And he's not been, he hasn't pulled his punches. He's not been nice. He's not been mean like South Park, which we can get into in a second. But he's been very he's used his voice well. So the reason we're talking about this is because CBS canceled his show.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any sense because he was the most popular late show host in America.
Indeed.
So we have to look into why they canceled the show. And the reason they canceled the show, do you know why, Patrick?
Well, the official reason is that late night is a dying industry, and the problem is it's just losing money, and that's why it was an issue of, because they're trying to do this merger, right? And so they were just trying to get the company as sellable as possible, so that is shareholder value. Value
of the company. So CBS, I'm sorry, Paramount which is a company that owns CBS, which is the company, the Columbia Broadcasting System, if anybody cares. They own the show that Stephen Colbert does. And they wanted to merge with something, a company called Skydance. And
Skydance.
It's an
Do they? Oh, sorry. No, go ahead.
It's an $8 billion merger, but mergers of that size require the agreement of the Federal Communications Commission, which is an executive appointed commission. So you effectively need the backing of the White House when you want to merge something of that size.
Well, now that's an incredibly cynical thing to say, Chris, because I'm sure that the head of the FCC takes their job very seriously and considers it to be an independent role where they have to. I'm wrong on this, aren't I? I'm just entirely. Trump's running that thing.
I just want to see who is the FCC chair. It's a person named Brendan Carr. And Brendan Carr is appointed in January 2025, which means he was appointed just at the beginning of the current Trump administration. And if you look at Brendan Carr, who is Brendan Carr?
That's a good question.
Well, the first picture that comes up online with Brendan Carr is he's a contributor to Project 2025, and there he is talking in front of CPAC.
Oh, and how funny!
He's a critic
of strange.
Yeah, how strange. So so we have a person who clearly is on the side of if we're nice, Trump if we're not nice, Project 2025, which is the wish list for authoritarianism in America, and so. It's interesting that in order to get this merger passed, it is believed that CBS and Paramount basically said, okay, we're gonna. There was two things actually that are involved here. Trump had an issue with CBS for two reasons. One, there was an interview on 60 Minutes. Remember this with Kamala Harris.
Yeah,
which the conspiracy theorists in MAGA basically said that the interview was edited to make Trump, to make her look better, and CBS and they got sued by Trump.
What was the cause of action there? Like what?
I think they got sued I think they were sued because of because of trying to affect the election or something. He tried to sue them and they capitulated to the lawsuit.
Yeah, which is interesting because. The thing is, from my understanding of that lawsuit is that there was no cause of action. Like there was no way to get past the First Amendment protections there, because what you're effectively saying there is, well, you can't use your private speech to say a thing I disagree with because I'm Donald Trump, and that is not a cognizable legal argument, basically. So for CBS to have, let's be honest here, to have surrendered, to have paid him millions and millions of dollars, for them to have done this. There's no way that this was on the basis of recommendations by their lawyers. There's no way that this is on the basis of them saying, all right, well, it's going to be a long run legal battle and whatnot. It's going to cost us a lot of money. And so therefore we'll just, pay and have done with it. I don't think there's any way to view it as anything other than effectively a bribe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Trump wanted that, basically wanted to punish 60 Minutes, but in order to get this merger through, which was completed yesterday, by the way.
Yeah.
After the cancellation of Colbert's show, they basically said we're going to cancel. Basically, CBS said, "Oh, Colbert's show is too expensive, so we're going to cancel that as well." Right? And you would think that that'd be the end of it. Now, canceling Stephen Colbert's show seems to have had like a deleterious effect on Colbert's ability to hold himself back, and so he's gone 100%. The teeth are out. He's like, "Well, what are you going to do? Fire me?" It's gone already.
It's a good point. Because the thing is, like, they're ending the show, but they're not ending the show for months.
Until next year. They're not ending the show until I think this next summer.
Right. So, exactly. So like, it's I feel like that may have been a bit of a strategic error on their part, or
that's probably has something to do with the contract. If they try to take him out now, they probably have so much more.
That's true. It probably cost them just an insane amount of money.
But that's not the end of the story. The reason that I wanted to talk about it, I just wanted to give you some background. It's because the chairman of the FCC, as part of this agreement with CBS, has basically told CBS that you're going to have a bias monitor in the room with you at CBS News.
That's an interesting turn of phrase. A bias monitor, you say?
A bias monitor.
So the government's going to tell them what's biased and what isn't.
Yeah.
So the government's, sorry, go ahead.
The government is going to be in the room to make sure that fair and balanced reporting is happening across CBS's news platforms. And it's time for a change. I believe that the chairman of CBS said, I'm sorry, the chairman of the FCC said, it's time for a change. We're going to reorient it to get rid of bias. Now that's interesting, Patrick.
That is. And I know a lot of you at home are thinking to yourself, well, that sounds, dangerous. That sounds like government interference in, the private market in a way that is, horrible from a First Amendment standpoint. And to those people at home, I say this, there's a lot of precedent for governments doing this, like the Soviet Union.
Yeah. We just called them political commissars.
Exactly.
If you've ever seen Hunt for the Red October, we always go back to it because it's always my favorite reference.
Sean Connery in a Russian accent.
Sean Connery used a Scottish accent. But
oh, Jesus.
What was his name? Tim Curry was the job of Tim Curry in that program. I'm sorry, in that movie was to be the political overseer of the actions of the boat. Yeah. So to have somebody in the room to make sure that you're not being too biased, who happens to be appointed by the president, in a Republican Senate, who is afraid of Trump, and they won't do anything to offend him, for fear of both their seat and potentially their life. Yep. We're just wondering, what is this like? What is this signal to the rest of the media? And also, last point. Where are the First Amendment? Where are the amendment guys? Where are the Second Amendment guys saying, the overreach of government?
Yeah. No, that's the thing, Chris. Like, the right wing in America, and I don't mean to paint with too broad of a brush here, but I'm going to. The right wing in the United States, generally speaking, has spent decades arguing vociferously for the exact opposite of what Donald Trump stands for. And then they started backing Donald Trump to the hilt, which suggests that when they said that the reason why they were against, say, the Civil Rights Act of 1965, because they were afraid of governmental overreach, and definitely not because of racism. Of course, if they're back in governmental overreach now, but they're still against the Civil Rights Act of 1965, I mean, it kind of suggests that, it's like the free speech warriors who will vigorously defend the rights of Nazis to not get any pushback on Twitter, because they're just so in favor of free speech, but also are in favor of like throwing people who protest in jail. Yeah, which suggests that if you're not in favor of free speech for everyone, but you are in favor of free speech for Nazis. I mean, there's only one reasonable conclusion there, which is that you don't care about free speech, you just care about Nazis.
You're just fascist.
Yeah. So it's not great.
So that's part one of this two-parter description, right? So right now, keep in your head that the Trump administration will apparently have a bias monitor, or effectively a commissar, to make sure that Trump's opinions and the opinions of the MAGA world are reflected in CBS's news reporting. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Just make sure there's not, there's no undue bias. There's no undue bias.
Right. Exactly.
Which they will determine what bias is. But,
exactly.
And so here's the second part. The second part is, let me refer to my notes here. Yes. Redistricting. So
this is the big one. Yeah.
In America, do you want to talk about this?
No. Take us through it. You're the expert, I think.
Am I?
I would say so. Having, you got your fancy dissertation there on exactly this kind of stuff.
Okay. So, all right. I'm not going to claim to be a total expert, but this is what's happening in America. So in America, unlike the United Kingdom, and unlike a lot of countries, the winners of political elections get to redraw the political boundaries when the state gets redistricted. And every 10 years, according to the Constitution, every 10 years after a census, then the states get new boundaries, because you know how many people are in the state. That also reapportions electoral votes, and it reapportions how many representatives each state gets. And I remember all states get 2 senators, but the number of the number of representatives you get is based on how many people in your state. And I don't remember the exact number that requires.
It's like 200,000. So some odd.
Yeah, some 200,000 people, you get one, right? That's why states like Wyoming and Montana will have like 2, 3, 4 senators, and the states are like, I'm sorry, 2, 3, 4 representatives, and the states are the size of Germany, and then you'll have like New Jersey and New York and Delaware, and they'll have the exact same or multiples of that.
Actually, Wyoming has a single representative, a single at-large representative.
Yeah.
And so, which is interesting because it means that normally the senators are the bigwigs in a state's politics and the representatives are just much less important. And yet that's kind of reversed with the really small states because you got 2 senators, but only a single representative. So they're the, they're the top guy.
They're the top, or lady. And so as we are approaching the midterms, it's becoming ever clearer that Trump is not popular. We talked about coattails before. His coattails are not nearly as long as they used to be. And of course, he has these huge scandals that are sitting on top of him. For example, Epstein, which isn't going away. So the breakdown in the House, I believe the Republicans have a 3-seat majority.
No. It's officially more than that because I think it's 219 to 212. Do I have that right? But that's with everybody sort of being there, and of course there have been some people have died in the House of Representatives. So, I think like 3 Democrats have died of old age.
Oh, sorry,
or
it
cancer.
It's 7. Right now it's 7 because there's 4 vacancies.
Yes. Okay. There we go.
And all of them had died with the exception of Mark Green, who resigned. And all of the 3 who have died have all been Democrats.
Yeah.
So it should be. I think it's.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. So if we're sort of backdating before those deaths occurred, then I think it would have been like a 3-seat majority. You're right.
Yeah, like a 3-seat majority. So obviously you only need to net 3 more seats for the Republicans, or in order to win the control of the House. And that's a very big deal. You win control of the House of Representatives, then you can eliminate Trump's almost all of his plans, because you can stop anything going into the Senate and anything coming back from the Senate. You can say, well, we're basically bring the government to a halt until Trump starts negotiating with the Congress, as he should be doing, as opposed to dictating Congress as he is. So Trump then very blatantly on his personally owned social media site basically said, we are going to redistrict or change the political map of Texas. And we're going to do this overnight, and we're going to do this to make sure that we get 5 more seats. As in, it doesn't matter what you do. We're going to change the rules. We're going to change the map to win more seats, even though we're not supposed to. In America, gerrymandering is an epidemic.
It really is. And again, we have our fabulous Supreme Court to thank for this. In Supreme Court law, racial gerrymandering has been dealt with very extensively by the courts because there were, obviously after the passage of the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act in the 1960s, when you started to have, the idea that actually it's not cool to literally prevent Black people from being able to be represented in Congress because the state is just run by white supremacists. So they decided that's not a good idea. One of the things that meant was that in the Voting Rights Act, it gave people the right to sue if they were being prevented from having their votes counted because of a racial gerrymander. And so there was a very long, decades-long series of precedents on when a racial gerrymander had gone too far and when that could be stopped. Now, the current Supreme Court has basically eviscerated all of that. But what it's also done is basically given its imprimatur to political gerrymandering, partisan gerrymandering. So according to the Supreme Court, is absolutely not a problem if a party gains power, uses that power to rig elections so that it always has a majority, on the theory that, well, if the people don't like it, they could just vote them out.
Yeah, of course.
Despite the fact the whole point is that they're not able to vote them out anymore because they've been gerrymandered into a permanent majority.
Let's give you a brief 20-second idea about gerrymandering, because gerrymandering is a phrase that's used here in the UK in Parliament, and they don't really know what the hell it means. Gerrymandering is drawing a district so that you carve out, specifically safe seats for yourself. So if you know that there's an affluent part of town over here and a poor part of town over there, in the United Kingdom, you have the Electoral Commission, and what they do is that they have a set amount of guidelines that say boundaries can't cross borders, you can't break up like historically. They can't cross rivers. They can't break up historically unified groups like towns and stuff. But in the United States, there are lines that go down the middle of streets, and because they want the affluent side on one side, or more accurately, the Democrats voting on one side and the Republicans voting on another, or like even in states like Illinois and Texas and all other states,
there are even some non-contiguous districts.
They're like districts with exclaves.
Yeah, there really are just no rules in the United States when it comes to gerrymandering for your party. However, one of those parties seems to think that, there are rules on this kind of thing and you really have to obey those rules and it's very important. And the other party is like, no, this is Calvin Ball. We will do whatever we want. So it's not that Democrats never gerrymander, but it is that Republicans gerrymander way, way, way
worse.
Yeah.
and this creates this problem in the system where you could not gerrymander. For example, California doesn't.
It in fact passed a law specifically to say nonpartisan districting to prevent these kind of gerrymanders.
And you have these issues of a few states. I don't know about anybody else other than California who doesn't have specific independent redistricting groups. But Texas is one of those places where you do gerrymander. Florida is another place where you do gerrymander, which is why Florida is now a red state. It used to be purple, but then there was a redistricting in 2020 or 2021, and now obvious Democratic districts are now Republican. So moving us back to the middle again, in order for so when Trump gave the order to the Texas to Greg Abbott, he said, Greg Abbott, you're going to do what I say. And Greg Abbott said, yes, sir. I'm sorry for looking you in the eyes.
Yeah.
The Democrats, a lot of Democrats, over 50 Democrats in the Texas State House, because that's where the changes need to be made ultimately.
Yeah.
They left the state. And if they leave the state, then that means that the House doesn't have a quorum. And if the House doesn't have a quorum, they can't pass legislation because it's against the law.
Yeah, you can't just have like 5 legislators show up one day and be like, all right, we're the only ones here. Guess we can pass anything we want. You got to have, there's an understanding. You got to have enough people to have an official session. And that's what a quorum is.
That's what a quorum is, yeah. In the United Kingdom, in the UK, in the House of Commons, you need 40 people to vote on a subject. If there's less than 40, then that business drops and they move on to the next thing.
Right, yeah. And so because you just don't have enough votes for it to be legitimate as an official act.
It's not legitimate.
So, Indeed. Now, it is interesting that the Republicans in the Texas House certainly have a majority. They constitute a majority unto themselves. It's interesting that the quorum is large enough that 50 Democrats absenting themselves can deny that quorum from happening.
Well, let's not forget that in state politics, you're going to get a bit more of a breakdown, a bit more of an even breakdown, because it's not federal politics. It's not a federal election, right? So there aren't just Democrats in the Illinois state legislature, right?
Right. Oh yeah, yeah.
Right, no, because Illinois is mostly farmland. So
you know which state has the most Republicans, Chris?
Which state is that?
California.
California. That's what I was thinking. Yeah, Orange County.
And the state with the second largest number of Democrats? Texas. Yeah.
Yes, that's why every election cycle we hear about Texas going purple. Texas might do it this time.
Right.
But of course, the state's been gerrymandered to ensure that doesn't happen. So these, as I was saying before, so these legislators had left the state and they've gone to New York, Massachusetts, and Illinois.
Yeah.
And now what I've heard is that they did this in 2021 to prevent the redistricting at that point, and they had to come back because they didn't have any money. Now, the Texas legislators, the Democrats legislators who went to Illinois, went to J.B. Pritzker's state. If you don't know, J.B. Pritzker is a literal billionaire.
Yeah.
His family his family owns hotels. I think they're Hyatts. And
there's some money in that.
So they're not running away. So it's not like the Pritzker family will run out of places for these guys to stay.
Yeah.
So now you have this problem, right? Because you have these legislators, specifically the ones in Illinois, who don't have a reason to come back to Texas anytime soon, because Pritzker will probably be giving them some kind of hotel suite, or at least a hotel room. And then you have the Texas state legislature, which is trying to pass this, Trump-initiated redistricting, which also will require another census.
It's important to recognize as well that this is a special session that the Texas House has called.
Yes.
Which means it doesn't last forever. So it makes it possible for the Democrats to stay away long enough that the special session eventually ends, and then they could conceivably actually prevent this from happening.
And let's also point out that the Texas state legislature is called a special session. The governor typically has to call these things, I think. I'll check on that. But typically, these things have to be called. And they didn't call it for the floods that killed a whole bunch of people, that wiped out a camp of kids. Yeah. No, they called a special session because the leader commanded that they break the rules in order to ensure his that he stays unopposed in office.
Yeah.
But not for the disaster that happened, the ecological disaster that happened in their state.
Exactly. Priorities, Chris. Priorities. Yeah.
So the Texas state legislature has, I think last week or this week, issued they approved arrest warrants for those senators who haven't come back because the House is sitting and they're like, well, we have to have a quorum. We're going to issue what they called a civil warrant.
Right.
To get them back.
Not a criminal warrant, a very different thing. This is a civil warrant. A civil warrant does allow the Texas authorities to be able to take a legislator who is not attending to their duties in the House and physically bring them there. So hence the arrest part of that. But what's really interesting here, Chris, is that this is the Texas House that's issued this, and that would have to be enforced by the state of Texas, which some of you keen-eyed viewers may have noticed is not Illinois.
It's not Illinois, no, and it's not Massachusetts. It's not New York. So
these are what we call not Texas in the business.
You'll note that this is the anti-Texas.
Yeah.
So here's the issue. So how does the sergeant at arms, who's the person who have to enforce this warrant anyway, along with I'm sure police officers or whatever, maybe the Texas Rangers, and and so how do they have the right to arrest people in Illinois? It's easy. They don't.
Yeah. Because again, the authorities of Texas have no authority in not Texas.
Yes.
So yeah.
So basically the Texas legislators can run out the clock, and Greg Abbott has then said, okay, well, I have a brilliant idea. I'm going to call the FBI, and I'm going to call Kash Patel, and Kash Patel is going to go grab him for me, because the FBI is the secret police of America, although it's ICE, but now it's the FBI. So they're going to go grab these people from Illinois and wherever and drag them back to Texas. What's the problem with that theory, Patrick?
Well, the problem here is this. Under what goddamn authority does the FBI have to do anything of that nature? This is not the federal government enforcing federal law, which is what federal enforcement authorities have the ability to do, legally speaking. This would be them enforcing state law, and I'm not at all clear that they have the authority to do that. And if governments act without authority, without legal authority, Chris, then they're not engaged in the process of government. If you arrest someone and you don't have the legal authority to do that, that is what is called false arrest. And if you take them somewhere, that is called kidnapping. So this is, the kind of thing that you might want to think about if you're an FBI agent who's being told by Kash Patel, go grab these state legislators and hive them off. I think there's a reason why people keep wearing masks, Chris.
Yeah.
And if we start seeing FBI agents wearing masks, I think that's a big indication that we have just crossed, if not the Rubicon, like maybe a tributary of the Rubicon,
And I mean, again, there's no federal law that's being broken here. They're not doing anything wrong. And frankly, the Texas legislators have done this before. They leave the state when they get, because that's all they can do, because, people voted for Republicans once. Republicans redrew the map so that you don't have to vote for them again, because they've ensured that they're going to get a majority no matter what all the time.
I mean, to be fair and balanced and all the rest of it, it is true that there is a governing majority of Republicans in Texas. The Republicans do get more votes than Democrats do. You see that at the senatorial level, which is, after all, not gerrymanderable gerrymanderable because it's statewide, right?
Yeah.
Same thing at presidential level. Again, this happens at the state level. So it's not that if it weren't for this gerrymandering, the Democrats would still be running Texas.
That's right.
But is that if it weren't for the gerrymandering, Democrats would have more representatives in Congress. It would not be as lopsided. And with such an incredibly slim majority in Washington at the moment, well, that could mean control of the House itself.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So the state of Texas, you're right. It's a Republican majority state, but what it's being portrayed as via gerrymandering is that there's almost no Democrats, which is nonsense, because there's enough Democrats to prevent a quorum in the House and in the Texas state legislature. So. Okay, so we have these two issues. We've had part one, the political commissars and CBS, and part two, the redistricting and the redistricting, the new census, which we haven't really talked about. So very quickly, Trump has basically said, "I want a new census."
Right, which pound sand, buddy. Like the Supreme Court is incredibly corrupt. I think we've all seen this, but the level of corruption that would have to be there for him to be able to just call a new census, and also in that new census not count any illegal immigrants or what have you in the census. The Constitution literally says there'll be a census every 10 years, and it counts everybody. So if you're going to claim that the Constitution doesn't say what it literally says, that would be the Supreme Court saying there is no Constitution.
And again,
and in competitive authoritarianism, the whole point is you keep the outer shell of democracy. You keep the symbols of it. You pretend like everything is still perfectly normal, even as you rig the system for total control. This would give the game away.
It would. I mean, to declare that you can select who is and isn't an American citizen would kind of be the end game, because you started with
what they're trying to do
and birthright citizenship, and now we're saying, oh, well, we're not going to count the illegals. Does that mean that every Rodriguez out there doesn't get counted, even though Rodriguez has been here for 150 years?
Well, maybe just declare that they're not persons,
or they're not persons.
Because when has that ever worked out badly in the entire history of humanity? I don't know.
So here we are, like you have these two giant red flags. And if the FBI comes kicking down hotel room doors in Illinois to grab some people drawn back to Texas, they're no longer the FBI. They're Trump's personal enforcement force.
Well, I think Kash Patel would be very happy with that particular outcome.
He can bend down to King Trump.
Yeah. But rather than leave you all with a growing sense of fear and agony as you conceptualize the end of democracy as we know it, I have some good news. Which is that there appear to be some Democrats who are fighting back.
Well,
and I don't just mean putting out mean tweets. I don't mean like being really good on social media. I mean like using their power in a way that actually might do something, which is it's hard for me to even put into words how surprising that is if you've been following the Democratic Party for the last 30 years. But so you mentioned J.B. Pritzker. He's in this story, as is Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, as is Katie Hochul. Hochul,
I believe.
I'm going to say Hochul because it sounds better. Governor Hochul of New York. These are three very strong and big Democratic states. These are also states in which districting has not been gerrymandered. These are some of the least gerrymandered states in the country.
Oh, not Pritzker. Illinois is incredibly gerrymandered.
Sorry, Illinois.
Illinois is incredibly gerrymandered.
I got above my ski. I got ahead of my skis there. I do apologize there. Right? But California, as we've already mentioned, has a law specifically to prevent that kind of gerrymandering. My understanding is New York is also relatively not gerrymandered in that sense. You've got a lot of Republican representatives, especially in upstate New York. You've got Republican representatives in California. And of course, you have Republican representatives coming from Illinois, mostly from the southern part of the state. Am I right about that, Chris? Or
well, I mean, most of the population of Illinois is in the north. So, yeah, you're going to get the rest of them coming from the south parts of the state. Yeah,
fair enough. But so the reason why I'm bringing these guys up is that all three of them had said that if Texas goes forward with this new round of gerrymandering to try to get 5 more Republican seats without gaining a single extra vote, that they will follow suit. And the thing is, among California, Illinois, and New York, there's a lot of extra Democratic seats you can get out if you have no interest in allowing the people to choose their representatives. If you decide to do to those Democratic states what the Republicans are doing to Texas and what they have done to California, well, that kind of blows the doors open.
Oh, yeah.
Because all of a sudden, that's a lot more than 5 seats changing hands. And so a lot of Republican representatives are starting to realize just how dangerous a game this is. And I'd like to bring this together basically by mentioning one of my favorite topics, which is game theory.
Wait.
I know you're all so excited.
I can't wait. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Well, I'll keep it short so you don't fall off. But so in game theory, one of the ideas, right, is if you have a repeated game where, the game doesn't just happen once, but it's going to happen again and again and again. And if you're playing against the same person, that changes how you want to play the game. We've mentioned before the concept of the prisoner's dilemma, where everyone has to choose between cooperating with the other person or screwing them over. Yeah. And in a single shot game where it's just you and me, and we're going to play this game and we're never going to play it again, both of us have one thing that we're definitely going to do, which is we're going to defect against each other.
Yeah.
And we'd be better off if we both cooperated, but neither of us can trust the other, and we can't trust ourselves because we're better off defecting no matter what the other person does.
Yeah.
But if we're going to play the game repeatedly, now that changes things. Maybe we think to ourselves, we are better off if we cooperate continuously. We get a better payoff than if I screw you over now, and then you keep screwing me over so I can never cooperate again, and you can never cooperate again. I might win one round, but I lose every other round.
Yeah.
So the idea then is that if you've got this kind of repeated game, you can get an equilibrium of cooperation. The problem is this: how do you maintain that equilibrium? And you can't just say, all right, well, I'm going to cooperate no matter what, right? And I'll do the right thing, and then the other guy will do the right thing. Because if you're always going to do the right thing, the other person has only one incentive, which is, I'm going to defect and win every single time. This is great. If I know you're always going to play rock, I am always going to play paper. And this is the best game of rock, paper, scissors ever.
Yeah.
For me. So obviously you can't do that. So there were, various studies done. Tournaments were held where different strategies were tried to see, okay, well, what does lead to the cooperative equilibrium? And the strategy that ends up winning again and again and again is what's called tit for tat with apologies. Tit for tat is exactly what it sounds like. I will do to you this time what you did to me last time.
Yeah.
You cooperated last time, I'll cooperate with you this time. You screwed me over last time, I'm going to screw you over this time.
Right.
And if both players are using this strategy, well, it makes sense to cooperate. Even if you've been defecting for a while, it makes sense to start cooperating. Even if I'm cooperate this time and they're going to screw me over, but next time they'll cooperate because I cooperated this time. Well, then you can get back to that equilibrium, right?
Right.
And I think the problem for the Democratic Party for the last 30 years is that they have been playing rock every single time. They have been going for cooperation, going for maintaining belief in the system, going for maintaining the norms and traditions of American democracy, even as the Republicans, from Newt Gingrich on in the 1990s, have gone scorched earth, have gone increasingly towards authoritarian tactics, have gone increasingly towards, towards breaking those norms and traditions. So if they're finally, you have Democratic governors who are willing to fight fire with fire and make it clear that we don't want this to be what's happening, but it is what's happening. Yeah. And we are going to defect if you're going to defect. And if you want us to not do that, you need to not do that. This is something that I think could convince enough Republican politicians that, they need to change how they're doing things. They need to get back to a mutually assured, basically using mutually assured destruction to rebuild peace effectively.
Yeah, and that's the issue, right? So because obviously the power in the legislature is your congressional seats, which is why there are partisan redistricting groups in each state to then realize that you're going to have mutual assured destruction, or you might not win at your game. Yeah, all of a sudden these people are going to be running the risk of losing their seat and losing their livelihoods.
Yeah. And I think that concentrates the mind a bit.
It does concentrate the mind. And then you figure out, okay, well, these guys aren't just going to be pushed over anymore. So how do we push them over? And you're like, well, hang on, they're starting to push back. And I mean, yeah, you're going to run into the accusations of hypocrisy. You're going to run into the accusations that, you're not playing fair. It's what the right wing does when you start doing what they do. They're like, hey, we're the ones who are supposed to cheat, not you. We're allowed to vote for convicted felons, but you guys can't vote for people who are slightly. Al Franken is always my greatest example of this. Al Franken, who had to resign over being dumb and with a dumb photo of him putting his hands over the chest armor. Of a female
which
officer
was not cool.
No, it was be dumb absolutely as hell.
Clear. Yeah, but also wasn't raping someone, which Donald Trump did, and he still maintained the support of the vast majority of Republicans.
Yeah, So
what the hell, man?
That's that imbalance that anytime you try to kick, sweep the legs, hack the bone. They're like, well, you're not supposed to do that. You have to, you've got to take it. We've got to give it to you. And it's like, but
that's not a game. That's not a game. That's just predation. Yeah.
And so the assumption that we're not going to bite back, I think that's finally starting to come to an end. And those Democrats who choose not to bite back, I don't think that they're going to be long for the political careers.
Nah. Because they're not wartime consigliaries, Chris.
No, exactly. Well, I think there are people who understand what's happening both in the United States and what's happening here in the UK, and happening around the world, around what we'll call the Western world. This is the United States and the United Kingdom are the only places where you're seeing the growth of the far right and of fascists. And just shout out to Brazil for putting Jair Bolsonaro, sending him for home arrest because he's on trial for trying to take over the country by military force.
I swear, you tried to do one measly little military coup.
One tiny coup.
All of a sudden, the courts are all up in your junk.
Yeah, because those courts have the power to deal with people like him. And also the courts didn't capitulate and say, like Merrick Garland did, or like, or like the Democrats did say, oh, well, we don't want to really offend the guy who tried to hang his vice president. We don't want to offend the guy who tried to, who sicked tens of thousands of people on Congress on January 6th.
It's going to be really disruptive. We're going to look forward, not backward, Chris.
Yeah, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. At the same time, you got cars plowing through, peaceful protests in 2010.
Greg Abbott explicitly pardoning murderers who killed peaceful protesters on purpose. Or you've just got, the governor of Texas basically making clear to everyone that, technically murder is illegal, but you can murder Democrats. That's fine.
But you can't. Yeah. So, I mean, it's, I think we're finally approaching the time because as we get closer to the midterms, it's going to get worse. And, it's going to
get a lot worse before it gets better, Chris.
It's going to get a lot worse.
Yeah.
Before it gets better. And again, as we always say, from time to time, if you're concerned, get involved. Keep reading, keep talking, talk to people and have some difficult conversations. It's not easy. But it's necessary.
There are good people who disagree with you politically. If you can find them, good. That's a good thing. That's a good thing to do in this world, is to find people who disagree with you politically and talk to them and find a way to come to some agreements. But that said, just there's some Nazis out there and there's some fascists, and they're not gonna be any help.
But on a positive note, as we're seeing in America, people who voted for Trump because they were legitimately afraid of dangerous foreign criminals coming into their world, right?
Yep.
They are now opposed to those policies because they didn't want a purge of American immigrants, legal or non-legal. If they had the right paperwork or didn't have the right paperwork, they just wanted safety. And now Trump is behind on all these huge metrics, including the Epstein files, including immigration.
He's now underwater on every single issue that is polled. And you're right. He's underwater on immigration. He's especially underwater on the policies of just rounding up innocent people who are undocumented and then shipping them off to torture prisons. No one likes what he's actually doing. They liked what they thought he was going to do, and they just sort of I think, translated the awful fascist shit that he said to mean something anodyne and normal, like we're going to expel people who are convicted of crimes and have no right to be here, which is what Joe Biden did. That's what Obama did. That's what like literally every president has always done. But that's not what Trump said he was going to do. And it's certainly not what he's doing.
And the same thing is happening here. You have reform saying, we just need to get rid of the bad guys or whatever they choose to say today. And it happens in France. It happens in Portugal, Spain, Ireland, Italy, probably to a lesser degree in Italy now because the fascists had to tone it down.
Right.
But we can probably end it here.
I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, I have no idea how long this has gone on for. I might have to cut at least a part of it, because I don't want to go on for days and days and days. This isn't the Joe Rogan show. We're going to go for 3 hours.
Right, exactly. And we don't have enough drugs, Chris.
No,
we simply don't have the drugs.
Allegedly. Right. So, thanks for listening. We'll see you hopefully next week. And as always, I'm Dr. Silverstein.
I'm Dr. Armshaw.
And we are doctors.
Not doctors.
Good night.